The screen goes black. The podcast ends. The door closes and the lock clicks. Suddenly, there is nothing. Just you four walls and the ambient hum of an empty room. For a fraction of a second, there is peace. But then, almost inevitably, a strange low-level panic begins to crawl up the back of your neck. Your fingers twitch instinctively, reaching for a glowing rectangle. Your mind races, searching for a task, a song, a conversation, a memory, anything to fill the void. If you force yourself to sit there, hands folded, doing absolutely nothing, the discomfort morphs into an unbearable itch. The silence feels heavy, oppressive. Why? Why is it that we have engineered the most physically comfortable, secure sanctuaries in the history of human civilization? Yet we treat our own quiet living rooms like prison cells the moment we are left alone in them. We do not fear the room. We fear the company. When you strip away the social obligations, the endless scroll of digital dopamine and the protective noise of the modern world, you're left alone with a stranger you have been avoiding for years. Your own unedited mind. If you cannot sit in a quiet room alone, you're in danger. Not from a physical threat, but from a psychological one. You are living as a hostage. If your baseline state of existence requires constant external sedation, you have no center of gravity. You belong entirely to the outside world, ready to be pulled by whoever or whatever provides the loudest distraction. This is not a modern curse. It is a fundamental human flaw, merely amplified by the machinery of our age. Over 2 millennia ago, long before the invention of the smartphone, the Stoic philosopher Seneca observed the erratic behavior of the Roman elite. He watched them travel frantically from one seaside villa to another, attending banquets, seeking out crowds, desperately trying to outrun an invisible shadow. Seneca realized that these people were not traveling. They were fleeing. They were trying to escape themselves. In Stoic psychology, there is a concept known as the Hegemonikon. It roughly translates to the ruling faculty, or the command center of the soul. It is the part of you that observes, reasons, and chooses. When the Hegemonikon is healthy, it is an impenetrable fortress. It generates its own warmth. It requires nothing from the outside to feel complete. But when we spend our lives outsourcing our attention, our Hegemonikon atrophies. It becomes frail. We forget how to generate our own stability, relying instead on a drip feed of external inputs, approval from peers, the outrage of the news cycle, the synthetic joy of entertainment. We run from the quiet room because entering it forces us to confront the catastrophic disrepair of our own inner citadel. The silence acts as a brutal mirror. Without the noise to distract us, we are forced to hear the terrifying echo of our own unresolved anxieties, our repressed grief, and the quiet suspicion that we are living lives we do not actually believe in. To sit in the quiet room is to step into the surgical theater of the mind, and the mind resists surgery. Consider the psychology of your daily performance. From the moment we wake up, we are subtly adjusting our behavior for an audience. We speak to be understood, we dress to be perceived, we work to be validated. We construct an avatar, a social mask carefully calibrated to navigate the hierarchies of our environment. But what happens to the mask when the audience leaves the theater? In the quiet room, the avatar has no utility. There is no one to impress, no one to outsmart, no one to comfort. For a mind that has fused its entire identity with its social performance, this absence of an audience feels like death. We feel empty in solitude because we have built our entire sense of self out of other people's reactions to us. We cannot sit quietly because subconsciously we are waiting for an external cue to tell us who we are supposed to be right now. The Stoic does not view this isolation as a void, but as an unwrapping. Solitude is the ultimate test of authenticity. When no one is watching what remains, The goal is not to become antisocial or a lone wolf, but to detach your core worth from the applause or the boos of the crowd. When you stop performing for phantom juries in your head, the silence stops feeling like an interrogation. We tell ourselves we consume content to learn to relax or to stay informed. But much of our consumption is not nourishment, it is anesthesia. Listen to the language we use. We kill time. We numb out. We put on a podcast just to have some background noise. What exactly are we trying to drown out? We are drowning out the dissonance of reality. We are avoiding the quiet realization that we are aging, that we have made mistakes we cannot undo, that we are fundamentally entirely out of control of the universe. The quiet room forces us to look at the gap between the person we intended to be and the person we have become. When you sit alone, the mind will initially flood you with guilt, regret, and anxious projections of the future. The natural instinct is to reach for the anesthetic to turn the screen back on. But true psychological endurance, what the Greeks called apatheia, a clear, untroubled state of mind, is born from letting that initial wave of panic wash over you without reacting. It is the realization that the thoughts haunting you in the silence are just weather. They are storm clouds passing through the empty room. You do not need to fight them. You certainly do not need to run from them. You just have to sit there completely still and watch them dissolve. Here is the hard truth about learning to sit quietly with yourself. It will fundamentally change your relationship with the world, and not always in ways the world appreciates. When you develop what the Stoics called autarkia, self-sufficiency of the soul, you stop being desperate. You stop over-explaining yourself. You no longer tolerate chaotic environments just to avoid being alone. You stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny just to feel included. And because of this, you may experience profound social friction. People who are used to your anxious compliance will be unsettled by your new stillness. They may interpret your emotional independence as arrogance or your quietness as judgment. You will likely lose relationships that were built entirely on mutual distraction and shared anxiety. Let them go. Stoicism does not promise that you will become a master of men, highly respected or socially dominant. In fact, it guarantees that you will be deeply misunderstood by the majority of people who are still running frantically from their own quiet rooms. The strength you build in the silence is strictly internal. It is a quiet, non-performative power. It does not look like victory. It looks like an unbothered detachment from the games everyone else is playing. You cannot read your way into this state. You cannot hack it. You cannot buy a course to fast-track it. You simply have to endure the room. Tomorrow, or perhaps tonight, you will find yourself alone. The impulse will strike. Your hand will reach for the device, the dial, the switch. Pause. Let the hand fall back to your lap. Let the silence descend. Notice the physical discomfort. Notice the desperate scrambling of your ego, trying to find a problem to solve or a grievance to chew on. Watch it all happen as if you are observing a frightened animal. Do not try to meditate. Do not try to reach enlightenment. Just sit in the chair. Let the daylight fade. Let the shadows lengthen across the floor. Exist for 10 uncompromising minutes without consuming, without producing, without performing. If you can do this, if you can look into the blank stare of your own existence and refuse to blink, what in this world could possibly have power over you?